Hey everybody, it's Roo-ray. I'm in Palma de Mallorca, Spain, and today I've decided that enough is enough. I can no longer shoulder the heavy guilt I feel for never having set foot inside the famous cathedral here, despite living here for years and also living about 6 minutes walk from it. I mean, I routinely go further to get a croissant. I've passed it a million times. I've used its surrounding walls to sunbathe, eat sandwiches and drink coffee. I've gazed at it glowing yellowy orange in the late afternoon sun while boozing on some roof terrace and thought I should probably go in there at some point, but I'm not going to do that now because I'm going to have a gin and tonic and then I'm going to go to bed at 7:30 because I'm an old man. But today really is the day to set foot inside this mighty Gothic structure. The golden sandstone cathedral, known locally as La Seu, or Cathedral of Light, began life in the year 1230 on the foundations of an old Moorish mosque, but took almost 400 years to complete. 120 metres in length and with a staggering interior height of 44 metres, taller even than the mighty Notre Dame, La Seu is one of the most impressive examples of Gothic architecture in Europe. It sits next to the royal palace of La Almudena on the ancient Roman citadel and looks out majestically over the walls and lake of Parc to the Mediterranean. Picture it. The year is 1229. You are the Spanish King James I of Aragon. Nice to meet you, Your Highness. You and your fleet are sailing purposely towards Mallorca on a reconquest mission to capture the island from the occupying Moors. These bloody Moors. They were always so greedy, weren't they? They always wanted more. They were like chocolate, really, weren't they? They were so Moorish. But by golly gosh, if the wind isn't blowing an absolute gale and the water, it's choppy AF. In the rapidly deteriorating conditions, you're feeling less than royal right now, barfing your paella over the starboard side. You're absolutely cacking your knickers, utterly convinced you're destined for a watery grave. On your knees and with a gal pal holding your hair out your face, you begin to bargain with God. Oh Father, deliver me safely to the dry land of Mallorca, and in return I will build one of the most impressive Gothic churches in Europe to honour the glorious Virgin. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to build it personally. I'm the king. I've got very dainty little hands and I wouldn't know one end of a hammer from the other. I'll tell you what, I'll get a bunch of slaves and people like that to build it. Well, good news. It seems you've pricked up God's ears and he likes the sound of your terms, because as quickly as the storm appeared, the seas fall calm and the hurricane softens to a breeze. With blue skies overhead, your fleet skips the waves to the island, completely forgetting, of course, that in about 30 minutes you're going to have to launch a bloody siege that will go on for 3 months, with loads of people dying in horrible old-fashioned ways. If you walk down the steps in front of the cathedral and come down to the old Roman wall here, you can get a really nice view of the Parc and the lake, which were added to the landscape in the 1960s when the Paseo Marítimo motorway was being constructed. Also, this spot is a really nice sun trap. I mean, take a look at this primitive sun lounger for soaking up the rays. Just please be aware of your own limitations. If you are a bit clumsy and think you might roll off this thing to your absolute certain death, you can just take one of the little stone seats instead. A second ago, I was up there, and now I'm down here, utilising, of course, the magic of editing. But this right here is where the water originally came up to, offering delightful reflections of the cathedral for all those approaching by the water. That was back in the day when people came to Mallorca by galleon and not by Ryanair. But in order for the proposed multi-lane highway to go ahead, the sea needed to be pushed back a few hundred metres. However, there were demands by demanding people, I guess, that La Seu's precious reflection be preserved, hence the lake. Oh, and also, just a little tip, if you do want a really nice view of the cathedral across the lake, there's a rather good bar over there that you can sit at. You know, I might actually just go and sit down and order a beer, just so you know what it looks like when somebody sits on a terrace and orders a beer here in Mallorca. I wouldn't normally, you know, because it's about 12 o'clock. It's a bit early for me, and I only drink once a month on special occasions. Once inside Laseo's inner belly, the incredible height draws your attention immediately. The towering central nave flanked by 20-metre columns and arches to each side. In pride of place, on the eastern end, you'll find the massive 14th century floret stained glass window, comprised of 1,200 individual pieces of stained glass, casting pools of red, blue and yellow into the interior. And hanging over the altar, Art Nouveau architect Antoni Gaudi's massive chandelier, commissioned in the early 1900s during a bold renovation, contrasts strikingly with the original Gothic stone backdrop. The famed architect of the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Gaudi, was hired to jazz this place up by the bishop in charge of the refurb after receiving a number of uninspiring proposals. So the Catalan modernist hopped on a boat, no planes yet, and got stuck right into the job, making some dramatic changes right off the bat. Changes like stripping away some of the earlier Baroque additions he didn't like, unbricking bricked up windows, adding new stained glass and completely revamping the interior lighting, whilst also designing and adding furniture, wrought ironmongery and ceramics to the whole caboodle. This guy was basically a one-man IKEA of the era. But it was the baldacchino, the chandelier, this huge suspended heptagonal crown that was Gaudi's, wait for it, crowning glory. Oh, if you like crap jokes like that, you're going to get plenty more of them on this channel, so why don't you subscribe? With 35 lanterns and a sculptural arrangement featuring Jesus, the Virgin and St. John, the baldacchino is actually just a scale mock-up of what was to be the finished installation. But Antoni had rustled a few of the institutional feathers during his radical overhaul. Oh, and his main supporter, the bishop that commissioned him, well, he kind of croaked halfway through the job as well, so the rest of the project got binned. In 1914, the famed architect would return to Barcelona to do Art Nouveau type things for a while before getting hit by a tram and killed. But that's not where Palma Cathedral's creative daring ends, no siree Bobby. Because not far off a century later, in 2001, a local artist by the name of Miguel Barcelo was let loose on the chapel here, where he proceeded to throw an absolute ton of clay at the walls and then sculpt lots of loaves and fishes all over them. A modern art interpretation of Jesus' famous multiplication miracle, where he basically invented mass production of the filet-o fish a couple of thousand years before McDonald's did. There's just something about a pew in a cathedral that makes you want to sit there until you're dragged out by the cleaners after closing time. It's a combination of the insanely ornamental decoration, the history, the vastness, the musty smell, the sheer ancientness of these grand churches that just makes you want to sit there with a pensive look on your face, pondering, well, nothing really. I'm actually just sitting there pretending I'm in the movie The Da Vinci Code and that I'm actually Tom Hanks. Guys, that's about all for today from Laseo, Palma's famous landmark. If you enjoyed my little presentation, go on, click that like button. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.